The night sky of Virelon 9 was quiet, but inside the crystal palace of the alien Empress Lyra, panic spread like wildfire. Her eyes, bright silver like moonlight, shook with fear as alarms echoed across the royal halls. The sound wasn't from enemies or bombs. It was worse, her daughters were gone. Lyra rushed down the corridor, her long robe trailing behind her. Servants bowed and guards froze at her command. "Search every room. Check the skies. Find the princesses," she shouted, her voice trembling. The Empress had faced wars, rebellions, and assassins. But nothing compared to this. The thought of her two young daughters missing in a dangerous galaxy. Her empire stretched across 12 planets, yet at that moment she felt powerless. Inside the royal control room, holographic maps glowed across the table. The palace scanner showed nothing. The guards' ships searched the nearby airspace, but there was no trace. "Your Majesty," said Commander Vorn, bowing low, "we have scanned every corner. The escape pods are all accounted for. It's as if the princesses vanished into thin air." Lyra's silver skin turned pale blue, a sign of deep fear among her kind. "No one disappears without a trace," she whispered. "Someone took them, and I will find out who." She turned toward the stars through the palace window. Far away, on a small blue planet known only to few as Earth, two small figures slept peacefully beside a human. Meanwhile on Earth, it was a quiet night in a small desert town. A young man named Ethan Cole lived alone in an old observatory he had rebuilt with his own hands. He loved the stars. They made him feel less lonely after his parents died years ago. That night, something strange had happened. His telescope had gone dark for a few minutes, then he heard a crash behind the hills. When he reached the spot, he found a small silver pod glowing faintly in the sand. Smoke rose from its cracks, and inside, two small alien girls were asleep. Their skin shimmered faintly in the moonlight, their faces calm as if they were dreaming. Ethan's first thought was that it was some secret government test. But then one of them stirred, clutching a small pendant that projected a faint image of a tall woman, the Empress Lyra, calling out desperately in another language. Ethan didn't understand the words, but he could feel the fear and love in her voice. He hesitated, then whispered, "It's okay. You're safe now." He carried the two small beings to his observatory and laid them on blankets near the heater. They looked fragile, almost human, but their eyes glowed faintly even in sleep. Ethan looked at them with awe. "What are you?" he muttered softly. "And how did you get here?" Back on Virelon 9 in the palace, Lyra stood before the ancient artifact, the stellar mirror, an alien device that could see beyond light years. The reflection in its glowing surface began to change. Through the haze, she saw the outline of a blue planet, and two small figures lying beside a strange creature, a human. Her heart froze. "Humans?" she whispered in horror. Her advisor bowed. "Your Majesty, shall we prepare an attack fleet?" Lyra hesitated. For thousands of years, the Galactic Council had forbidden contact with humans. The law was strict. Any alien life found near Earth must be erased. If her daughters were truly there and the Council found out, they would destroy the planet and her daughters with it. Lyra clenched her fists. No fleets, not yet. I will find another way." Her mind raced. How did her children escape? Why Earth? Was it an accident? Or had someone betrayed her? She looked at the mirror again, focusing on the human's face. Ethan's calm eyes looked straight back at her as if he could somehow feel her watching. "Who are you, human?" she whispered. On Earth, the storm grows, Ethan spent the night watching over the two alien children. He didn't sleep. He kept hearing soft hums coming from their bracelets, like they were sending weak signals. He wrapped them in warm clothes and gave them water, though they barely moved. When dawn broke, the older one opened her eyes, pure white, glowing softly. She stared at Ethan for a moment, then whispered one word in perfect English. "Mother." Ethan froze. "You can speak?" But before she could answer, the entire room shook. The ground rumbled as the pod outside glowed again, sending a faint pulse into the sky. A storm began to rise above the desert, clouds swirling unnaturally. Ethan ran outside and looked up. What the hell? Far above, hidden beyond the atmosphere, an invisible ship detected the pulse. A robotic voice echoed in its metal halls. "Signal confirmed. Royal signature located. Transmission to Galactic Council initiated." The children were found. But so was Earth. The desert wind howled around the observatory as Ethan Cole stepped back from the glowing pod. The pulse of blue light faded slowly, leaving a strange silence. Inside, the two alien girls were awake now. Their white eyes blinked, filled with confusion and fear. Ethan's heart raced. He didn't know what to say or what to do. "You're okay," he said softly, raising his hands. "I'm not going to hurt you." The older girl watched him carefully, her eyes sharp like she could read his thoughts. The younger one, smaller and fragile, clung to her sister's arm. Ethan could tell they were sisters. There was a strange peace in the way they held each other, even in fear. Then the older one spoke again, her voice soft and melodic with a strange accent. "Where is Mother?" Ethan hesitated. "I don't know, but you fell from the sky. Your ship, it crashed here." She looked around, confused by the strange human room filled with screens, books, and tools. "Earth," she whispered, almost like she knew the word already. "We are not supposed to be here." Before Ethan could ask what she meant, her bracelet glowed again. A small hologram flickered above it. The face of Empress Lyra appeared, glitching and broken. The Empress looked terrified. Lyra, my daughters, listen to me," the hologram cried. "Hide, the council." "They must not—" The message cut off. Ethan stared at the projection, speechless. He had just seen something that shouldn't exist, an alien queen calling across space. "Who was that?" he whispered. The older girl looked at him with sad eyes. "Our mother, the Empress of Virelon." Ethan blinked. "Empress? As in space royalty?" She nodded slowly. "She will come for us. But if others find us first, they will destroy you." Back in the Starzon, the shining planet of Virelon 9, panic had turned into silence. The Empress stood in her private chamber, surrounded by glowing star maps. Her eyes were locked on one red dot, Earth. Her daughter's life signals flickered there, fragile but alive. Relief touched her heart for a moment, but it was drowned by fear. She knew what would come next. The Galactic Council would sense the same signal. And to them, Earth was a forbidden world. Humans were considered dangerous, unpredictable. The Council's law was clear. If any higher species makes contact with humanity, both shall be erased to preserve balance. Lyra clenched her fists. "Not my children," she said softly. Her advisor entered quietly. "Your Majesty, the Council requests your presence." They detected the transmission. Lyra took a deep breath. "Then I will speak with them. Delay their fleet if you can. We must find the human first." The Council of Stars. The great chamber of the Council shimmered with light from 100 worlds. Each member sat inside their own floating sphere representing their race. When Lyra's image appeared in the center, silence fell. "Empress Lyra," said the eldest of the Council. "A tall being of living crystal, we have detected your royal signal." "On Earth," Lyra bowed slightly. "An accident. My daughter's transport malfunctioned. They are stranded but unharmed." The crystal being's glow darkened. "You know the law. No species of the core worlds may interact with humans. They are unstable, violent, and unpredictable. Contact risks galactic chaos." Lyra raised her head. "Then I will retrieve them myself." Quietly. "That is not allowed," the Council replied. "We will send our enforcers." "If the human has already made contact," Lyra's voice turned sharp. "If you harm that human, you declare war on the Empire of Virelon." The chamber buzzed with murmurs. No one had ever threatened the Council before. The Crystal Elder spoke coldly. "Then pray, Empress, that the human dies before we arrive. For if he lives, your empire dies with him. Earth." The promise back in the observatory, Ethan tried to understand everything. Alien princesses, a galactic empire, a law that wanted him dead. He looked at the two sisters. They were shivering slightly, though not from cold. He gave them food, bread and soup, and watched as they tried to eat like human children. The younger one, Lyra, smiled faintly. "It's warm," she said softly. Ethan chuckled nervously. "Yeah, it's called soup. Humans eat it when they're scared." Arya tilted her head. "Are you scared?" He thought for a moment. "A little. But I guess you are too." She looked down. "We are not supposed to be here." "The Council will come," Ethan frowned. "Council?" She looked up at him with serious eyes. "They destroy everything that breaks their rules. If they find us, they will kill you." Ethan was silent. He didn't understand alien politics, but he knew one thing. He wasn't going to let anyone harm two frightened children. He stood up. "Then they'll have to get through me first." Arya looked at him strangely. "You would fight for us?" He smiled faintly. Guess I already am. Something flickered in her glowing eyes, something like hope. Far above Earth, in the darkness of space, a shadow moved. A fleet of black ships, silent and invisible, began descending toward Earth. The leader of the fleet spoke in a calm, robotic voice. Objective located. 2 royal life forms, 1 human contact. Termination authorized. Lightning flashed across the night sky of the desert. Ethan felt it before he saw it. A low hum that shook the ground. The air smelled like metal and ozone. Arya turned to the window, her voice trembling. They're here. Ethan looked up at the storm forming over his observatory. Who? He asked. Arya whispered the words that would change everything. The Council's hunters. And before Ethan could react, the night exploded with light. The sky tore open like a wound. A blinding streak of blue fire cut through the night, shaking the desert around Ethan's observatory. He ran outside, shielding his eyes as sand whipped into the air. The 2 alien girls stood behind him, their small hands clutching his jacket. Stay inside, he shouted, but they wouldn't move. Their glowing eyes were fixed on the sky, where 3 dark ships descended silently, their shapes too perfect to be human. The air itself seemed to bend around them. The older girl, Arya, whispered in fear. They found us. The ships landed with no sound, just a low vibration that made Ethan's bones ache. From the mist stepped tall, armored figures with glowing helmets. Their voices echoed in the air like metal scraping against glass. By order of the Galactic Council, surrender the royal offspring and the human contaminant. Ethan's heart pounded. He had no weapon, no plan. He only had courage, and that wasn't much against aliens from the stars. But when he looked at the 2 trembling girls, something deep inside him hardened. You're not taking them, he said quietly. The leader of the alien soldiers tilted his head. You would defy the Council, human? Ethan forced a shaky smile. Yes, I would. The soldiers raised glowing staffs. The air shimmered with blue energy. Before Ethan could blink, one fired. A beam of light exploded beside him, throwing him back. He hit the ground hard, dust filling his lungs. Stop! Arya cried, stepping forward. Her bracelet flared with light, forming a glowing shield around Ethan and her sister. You will not harm him! The soldiers froze for a moment. Their scanners confirmed it. The royal seal of Virulon had activated. The Empress's daughter had used her birthright to protect a human. That is forbidden, hissed the leader. You have broken the code. Another beam fired. The shield cracked, flickering like broken glass. Arya fell to her knees, her face pale. Lyra screamed her sister's name. Ethan dragged himself forward, grabbing a piece of broken metal pipe. It was useless against alien armor, but he didn't care. Leave them alone, he shouted and charged. The alien soldier raised his weapon, but before he could fire, a deafening roar echoed from the sky. A massive beam of golden light slammed between them, throwing dust and fire into the air. The ground shook. When the smoke cleared, a new ship hovered above the desert, sleek, silver, and covered in glowing sigils. A voice echoed through the air, cold and commanding. Stand down. These children belong to the House of Virulon. Arya looked up in shock. Mother, she whispered. The alien soldiers hesitated, but the leader growled. Council law overrides royal claim. The ship's hatch opened. A tall figure stepped out, wrapped in flowing silver robes. The Empress Lyra herself. Her presence made even the air hum. Her eyes burned with fury as she faced the Council's enforcers. You dare point weapons at my blood? She said, her voice echoing with power. The soldiers bowed slightly, but their leader spoke coldly. By the decree of the Council, all who make contact with humanity must be purged. That includes you, Empress. Lyra raised a hand. The air shimmered, and in an instant, all the soldiers were thrown back as if hit by a storm. Her energy pulsed through the desert like lightning. You will not touch my daughters, she said. Ethan stared in disbelief. He was seeing something beyond human understanding, pure power, yet full of emotion. The Empress wasn't a monster. She was a mother. One of the soldiers crawled to his feet, pressing a device on his armor. Council fleet inbound, he said weakly before vanishing in a flash of light. Lyra's eyes darkened. They are calling reinforcements. We have minutes at best. Ethan stood, still dazed. Then we need to run. Lyra looked at him for the first time. Her silver eyes studied him as if weighing his soul. You protected my children, she said softly. Why? Ethan shrugged. Because they needed me. For the first time, the Empress smiled, a small, tired smile. Then you are either brave or foolish, perhaps both. Her ship opened and she motioned for them to follow. But as they moved, the ground trembled again. The horizon lit up with hundreds of lights. The Council's fleet was entering Earth's atmosphere. Lyra turned to Ethan. If they find you with us, they will destroy your world. You must stay behind, Ethan shook his head. You can't fight them alone. She looked at him with quiet sadness. I must, my empire is at stake. My daughter's lives. Your planet's survival. Arya grabbed her mother's hand. He helped us. Don't leave him. Lyra hesitated. For a moment she saw something in Ethan's eyes. Something rare among humans. Not greed, not fear, just courage. Very well, she said finally. You will come with us. But if you step aboard my ship, you can never go back. Ethan glanced once at the observatory, the only home he'd ever known. Then he looked at the sisters holding on to each other, and at the stars above. Then I guess I'm already gone. They ran toward the silver ship as the first Council missiles began to fall. The desert erupted in light. Sand turned to glass. The Empress raised her hands, creating a shimmering dome of energy around them. Hold on, she shouted. The ship lifted off, slicing through the storm of fire. As it rose into the night sky, Earth became smaller and smaller beneath them. Inside the cabin, alarms flashed red. The ship shook violently. Lyra began to cry and Arya held her tight. Lyra placed a hand on Ethan's shoulder. Do not fear, she said. The stars are cruel, but they are watching. Ethan looked through the viewport, watching the Earth fade into darkness. I'm not afraid, he whispered. I just hope we make it. Lyra nodded slowly. So do I, human. Outside, far behind them, the Council's fleet followed. Hundreds of ships locked onto their trail. And in the silence of space, the chase began. The human who shouldn't exist was now at the heart of a galactic war. The stars stretched endlessly before them, glowing like a sea of fireflies in the void. Ethan sat strapped inside the alien ship, staring out the viewport as the blue curve of Earth disappeared behind them. His heart felt heavy. He had left everything. His home, his planet, his entire life. For two children he had met only a day ago. The hum of the engines filled the silence. The Empress stood near the controls, her silver robes flowing gently in the soft light. She looked calm, but Ethan could see the tension in her eyes. Every few minutes she glanced at the radar display, where countless red dots blinked behind them, the Council's fleet. How long until they catch us? Ethan asked quietly. Lyra didn't answer at first. Her fingers moved swiftly over glowing panels. If their ships push to maximum warp, minutes, she said finally, but I will not let them. She touched a crystal near the center console and the ship shuddered. A strange ripple of light spread across the hull, bending the stars outside like liquid glass. Ethan felt a chill as the colors twisted and time itself seemed to slow. What did you do? He asked. Folded space, Lyra replied calmly. A forbidden technique. It will hide us for a short time, but the cost is great. Arya looked up from her seat. Mother, your energy. I will endure, the Empress said, though her voice trembled slightly. The ship fell silent again. Lyra, the younger one, sat beside Ethan, holding her pendant tightly. Will they stop chasing us? She asked. Ethan forced a small smile. Your mom seems pretty powerful. I think we'll be okay. But Lyra's expression told another story. She could feel the drain from the space fold. Her life force was being pulled into the engines. If she maintained it too long, her body would collapse. But there was no other choice. The Council's ships were faster. They would not stop. Meanwhile, deep in the darkness of space, the Council fleet moved like a swarm of shadows. Their flagship, the Sanctum of Order, led the chase. Inside its command chamber, High Commander Orthus watched the energy trail of Lyra's ship with cold eyes. The Empress has used forbidden technology, said one officer. Shall we engage Pursuit Protocol Gamma? Orthus leaned back in his chair, his armor glowing faintly. Of course, the human contamination must be erased, and the Empress must be made an example. He turned toward the viewport where the faint glimmer of the spacefold pulsed in the distance. She defied the Council. Now she will learn what mercy costs. Inside Lyra's ship, the tension grew heavier. Arya knelt beside her mother, worry clear on her face. You're fading, she said softly. You're giving too much energy. Lyra smiled weakly. An Empress protects her children. Ethan stood helplessly nearby. He had no idea how to help. The control panels looked like puzzles from another universe. "There has to be something I can do," he said. "Some way to keep this ship running." The Empress looked up at him. "You're a human. You do not possess the energy flow needed for Starfold navigation." "Maybe not," Ethan said, "but I can fix machines. That's what I did back home. I repaired satellites and old telescopes." Lyra blinked, surprised. Then she nodded slowly. "Then go to the lower deck. You will find the power conduit chamber. The regulators are overheating. Cool them manually." Ethan didn't hesitate. He ran down the corridor, guided by the soft glow of alien symbols on the walls. The deeper he went, the more he felt the heat. The air shimmered like fire. The conduits pulsed with bright energy, alive, almost breathing. He found the main regulator, a huge crystal cylinder filled with swirling light. Its surface cracked and hissed with sparks. Ethan grabbed a nearby tool that looked like a metallic glove and pressed it against the surface. The glove reacted instantly, creating a shield around his hand. "Okay," he muttered. "Let's see how you work." He adjusted the crystal's alignment, twisting the rings surrounding it. The hum changed pitch. Sparks flew across his face, but he didn't stop. After a few tense seconds, the light stabilized. Back on the bridge, the shaking eased. The Empress gasped and looked at the readings. "Stabilized," she whispered. "How?" Arya smiled faintly. "The human fixed it." For the first time, Lyra allowed herself a moment of awe. This man, this fragile being from a primitive world, had done what her own engineers might have failed to do. When Ethan returned, sweating and covered in dust, Lyra turned toward him. "You just saved us," she said softly. Ethan shrugged. "Guess I got lucky." "No," Lyra said. "You're more than luck, human. You have something this galaxy has forgotten, instinct." But their relief didn't last. A sudden alarm screamed through the ship. The radar flared with red. "They've found us," Arya whispered. Lyra's eyes widened. "Impossible. The fold shouldn't be traceable." A distorted voice filled the comm system. "Empress Lyra of Virelon. This is High Commander Orthus. You are charged with violation of the core directive and contamination of a restricted species. Power down your vessel." Ethan clenched his fists. "They tracked us even through that." "Space warp?" Lyra's expression hardened. "He used a blood key. They have a traitor inside my empire." "Traitor?" Arya asked, horrified. Lyra nodded. "Someone close to the throne betrayed us. That's how they found the signal." The voice returned, colder now. "You cannot hide, Lyra. The human will die first. Then your line ends." Lyra stood tall, her energy flaring. "If you want war, Orthus, come and take it." The ship shook as laser fire streaked through space. Ethan grabbed the edge of a console as sparks exploded above him. Lyra screamed, and Lyra threw up a shimmering shield around them. The Council's weapons hit like thunder, shields at 40%. Arya shouted. Lyra's eyes blazed. "We make for the nebula rift. Its storms will hide us." Ethan looked out the window where a swirling cloud of blue and violet light waited ahead. It was beautiful and terrifying. The Empress gripped the controls. "Hold on." The ship plunged into the storm. Lightning danced across the hull. The stars disappeared behind a wall of glowing dust. For a moment, Ethan thought the ship would tear apart. Then everything went silent. Only the hum of the engines remained. Outside the window, they floated inside a sea of color, glowing clouds that shimmered like liquid diamonds. Lyra leaned back, exhausted. "We're safe. For now." Ethan looked at her, then at the children huddled nearby. "For now," he echoed quietly. But deep in his heart, he knew this was only the beginning. The Council wouldn't stop, and somewhere in the vastness of space, someone within Lyra's own empire was helping them hunt her. Down the human had entered a world of gods and monsters, and there was no turning back. The storm around the ship glowed with strange colors, blue lightning, violet clouds, and threads of light that looked like veins across the void. Ethan had never seen anything like it. The ship drifted through the glowing mist silently, like a ghost lost in space. Every now and then a burst of energy hit the hull, making the metal groan and hum. He sat near the viewport, staring at the nebula outside. It was beautiful but also terrifying. Behind them, the Council's fleet was gone, but Ethan knew they weren't safe. Nothing about this felt safe anymore. Arya and Lyra were asleep beside him, wrapped in silver blankets. Their faces were peaceful, but their glowing skin flickered now and then, like stars fading behind clouds. Lyra, the Empress, stood near the control table studying holographic maps. Her expression was calm, but her eyes were dark with thought. "How long can we stay here?" Ethan finally asked. Lyra didn't look up. "The nebula rift hides us from scanners, but it drains power. The longer we stay, the weaker we become." Ethan nodded. "And if we leave?" She looked at him then, her gaze sharp and heavy. "If we leave, they will find us again. The council never stops," he sighed. "So trapped either way." Lyra's lips curved slightly, almost a smile. "Now you understand how empires die, human. Not in battles, but in choices." Ethan didn't answer. He looked at the children again. He had no idea how he'd gone from fixing telescopes on Earth to hiding in alien space with a queen and her daughters. Part of him wanted to laugh. The other part wanted to scream. Then the lights flickered. The ship trembled slightly. Lyra frowned and touched a glowing crystal on the console. "Something's wrong," she murmured. "The storm currents are shifting." Ethan stood. "Shifting?" Before she could reply, a loud metallic crack echoed through the ship. The walls vibrated violently. Sparks rained from the ceiling. Arya woke up instantly, pulling her sister close. "What's happening?" she cried. Lyra moved to the control table, her voice steady but tense. "The rift is unstable. It reacts to emotion and energy." "We stayed too long?" "Reacts to emotion?" Ethan repeated, confused. "Yes," Lyra said. "The nebula rift feeds on thought and feeling. The stronger the fear, the more violent it becomes." Almost as if on cue, a massive burst of light tore through the cloud outside, hitting the ship like a hammer. The hull screamed. The lights went out. Everything went black. Ethan felt his stomach rise as gravity failed. He grabbed a nearby handle, floating in the dark. He could hear the children crying softly and Lyra's voice cutting through the chaos. "Stay calm. Breathe slowly. The storm is feeding." Her words didn't make sense to him, but her tone did. Commanding, strong, almost human. Then a new sound came, a deep echoing hum like a heartbeat from inside the storm. A shape appeared outside the window. It wasn't a ship. It was alive. A massive creature, glowing faintly blue, drifted through the nebula. Its body shimmered like glass and its eyes glowed brighter than stars. Ethan stared in awe as it circled the ship slowly, almost curious. "What is that?" he whispered. Lyra's face turned pale. "An ancient one. A rift guardian. They were thought extinct." The creature moved closer, its massive tendrils wrapping around the ship gently. Ethan felt its presence like a whisper in his mind. A calm, deep voice that wasn't human at all. "You carry pain," it said inside his thoughts, "and love. Two rare flames in the cold." Ethan froze.
"Did anyone else hear that?"
Lyra nodded slowly. "It speaks through thought. Be careful what you feel. It can sense everything." Ethan swallowed hard. "What does it want?" Before Lyra could answer, the creature's glow intensified. A beam of soft light touched the hull, and the ship's alarm silenced instantly. The shaking stopped. For a moment, the storm itself seemed to calm. Then the voice spoke again. "One of you carries a secret that will destroy worlds." Everyone froze. Lyra's eyes flicked to Ethan, then to her daughters. "What do you mean?" she asked aloud. The creature didn't answer right away. It moved closer to the viewport until its glowing eye filled the window. Then, in a deep whisper that shook the air, it said, "Among you hides the betrayer's mark." Arya gasped. "The betrayer's mark? That's a myth." Lyra's face turned stone cold.
"No, it's not." Ethan looked between them.
"What's it talking about?" Lyra turned to him slowly. "The betrayer's mark is an ancient curse, a symbol placed by those who serve the council in secret. It hides on the skin and binds the soul. Those who carry it become beacons. The council can track them anywhere." She walked closer to her daughters, her gaze intense. "Show me your arms." Arya hesitated, then lifted her sleeve. Nothing. Lyra followed, tears welling in her eyes. Nothing again. Lyra looked down at her own wrist. Clean. Then Ethan realized both the Empress and her daughters were staring at him. "Wait," he said. "No, it can't be me. I'm—" Before he could finish, Lyra stepped forward and touched his shoulder. A faint glow appeared on his neck, a small symbol like a spiral of light. It pulsed softly, matching his heartbeat. Ethan's breath caught. "What is that?" Lyra's expression darkened. "The mark, somehow they placed it on you." "But how?" he asked desperately. "I've never even seen your people before yesterday." Lyra's voice was quiet but fierce. "Someone used you, Ethan. They used your planet, your signal, your mind. That's how they found us." The council didn't trace my ship, they traced you. Ethan felt the room tilt. So I led them to you? Lyra nodded grimly. Unknowingly. But yes, the Guardian's voice filled their minds again. If the mark lives, all will fall. Only death or faith can cleanse it. Then it vanished into the storm, leaving behind silence and fear. Ethan stood frozen, staring at his reflection in the glass. The faint spiral still glowed beneath his skin. Lyra turned away, her voice low. You saved my daughters, but now, you may doom us all. For the first time since he'd left Earth, Ethan felt truly alone among the stars. The mark on Ethan's neck burned faintly under the dim silver lights of the ship. He sat in silence, staring at the reflection of that faint spiral in the window, pale gold against his skin, pulsing with a rhythm that wasn't quite his heartbeat. Every throb felt heavier than the last, like something alien was crawling beneath his flesh. Across the control room, Empress Lyra stood motionless, her eyes locked on him. The calm, regal light that had surrounded her earlier had faded. Now she looked almost afraid. Not for herself, but for what he might bring upon them all. Arya and Lyra clung to each other, watching in confusion. They were too young to understand galactic laws or ancient curses, but they understood one thing. Ethan had protected them. The thought that he could be dangerous made their hearts twist with disbelief. Ethan finally broke the silence. So what happens now? His voice was quiet, rough. You throw me out the airlock. Lyra didn't respond immediately. Her hand trembled slightly as she reached for the control crystal on the console. If it were anyone else, she said softly, I might have to. He laughed bitterly. That's comforting, she turned to face him. Do you understand what this means, human? That mark is a living transmitter. Wherever we go, the council will find us. It's not just a signal, it's part of you. Ethan stood, anger and fear mixing inside him. Then take it off. Cut it out, burn it, whatever, just get rid of it. Lyra shook her head. It's not that simple. The mark binds to the soul, not the body. To remove it, you would have to sever that connection entirely. In human words, Arya said softly, you would have to die. The words hit Ethan like ice. He sat down again, trying to breathe. His mind spun with thoughts. Earth, the girls, the chase, the mark pulsing under his skin. Everything felt unreal. Lyra looked at him for a long moment, her voice softening. I do not believe you are our enemy, Ethan. You risked your life for my daughters. That is something no council agent would do, but we must be careful. The council will sense that mark again soon. She turned to her daughters. Prepare the resonance chamber. We will attempt to mask the signal. The girls ran off obediently, leaving Ethan and Lyra alone in the quiet hum of the ship. Ethan looked up. You really think we can stop it? Lyra's expression softened, almost human now. No, but I can try to hide it. We will need something powerful enough to distort the mark's pulse. He frowned. Like what? Her gaze drifted toward the window where the nebula cloud still shimmered faintly. There is a planet on the edge of this rift, she said. It was once a temple world, ancient, forbidden. Its core still hums with the energy of the first builders. If we reach it, I may have a chance. Ethan nodded slowly. Then what are we waiting for? Lyra's eyes flickered with both admiration and sadness. You are brave, human, but bravery will not save you if the mark consumes your mind. He blinked. Consumes my mind? She hesitated before answering. The mark is not just a tracker. It's a seed. If left unchecked, it will grow. Feed on your memories, your emotions. Soon it will not only broadcast your location, it will control you. Ethan's stomach turned. So I'm a bomb waiting to go off? Yes, she said quietly. And we are running out of time. The ship cut through the glowing mist, speeding toward the dark silhouette of a planet hidden inside the storm. It looked lifeless, gray and cracked, surrounded by lightning clouds, but faint rivers of blue light pulsed across its surface like veins. The temple world, Lyra whispered. Kareth Prime, the birthplace of the builders. Arya stood beside her mother, watching the ancient planet grow larger on the screen. You said it was destroyed, she whispered. It was, Lyra said. But the old energy remains. Enough to hide us. Maybe enough to save him. Ethan leaned closer to the window. You mean me, right? The walking tracker? Lyra almost smiled. Yes, you. The ship descended through thick clouds, lightning flickering across the hull. When they landed, a strange stillness filled the air. The surface was smooth as glass, and strange glowing patterns ran through the ground, pulsing in rhythm with Ethan's mark. Lyra stepped out first, her silver robes flowing in the warm wind. The air shimmered faintly around her. This world was alive in ways Earth could never be. "Stay close," she said. "If the mark reacts to this place, it could awaken things best left asleep." Ethan followed, his heart pounding. The children stayed behind, watching from the ship's ramp. As they walked, Ethan noticed strange structures buried in the dust. Giant stone rings, carved with symbols that looked ancient and alive. The symbols seemed to move when he stared at them too long. They reached a circular platform surrounded by broken pillars. Lyra placed her hand on one of the stones and it lit up instantly. The air vibrated with a deep hum. "This was once a sanctum of healing," she said. "The builders used it to balance their energy. Maybe it can sever your connection." Ethan stood in the center as the platform began to glow. A beam of light rose from beneath his feet, surrounding him. The mark on his neck pulsed violently, reacting to the power. Lyra chanted softly in her language. Symbols of light spun around them like tiny stars. Ethan felt heat, then cold, then a strange pull inside his chest. It was as if something invisible was being torn out of him. "Hold still," Lyra said through gritted teeth. "Do not fight it," he gasped. "I'm trying." The light intensified. The mark flared like fire, and a surge of energy exploded outward, throwing both of them back. The ground cracked. The air filled with light and dust. When the glow faded, Ethan lay on the ground, trembling. The mark was gone, but Lyra looked horrified. "What's wrong?" he asked weakly. She pointed to the sky. Above them, a single red beam pierced the clouds. The signal had flared one last time before disappearing. "They saw us," she whispered. "The council knows exactly where we are." Ethan sat up, dread filling his chest. "Then we need to go, now." Lyra helped him to his feet, her voice trembling for the first time. "We will, but they are already coming, Ethan. You may have freed yourself, but you have doomed us all." Lightning split the sky as the first council ships broke through the storm. The temple world trembled beneath their engines, and as the Empress looked at the man who had saved her daughters and now endangered her empire, she realized something she had never thought possible. This human, weak and mortal, might change the fate of the entire galaxy. The ground shuddered beneath them. Cracks spread across the glowing surface of Kareth Prime, splitting the ancient temple floor like breaking glass. The air smelled of ozone and dust, and thunder rolled endlessly across the clouds above. Ethan stood beside Empress Lyra, his breathing heavy. His mark was gone, but the cost was clear. The sky burned red with the light of council warships descending through the storm. The quiet planet that had slept for centuries was now a battlefield waiting to ignite. Lyra's silver eyes reflected the glow of the ships as she whispered, "They came faster than I feared." Ethan clenched his fists. "Then we fight." She looked at him, almost smiling through the fear. "You are only human. You can't fight them." Ethan shook his head. "Maybe not. But I'm done running." Above them, the first ships broke through the clouds, sleek and black like knives of light. Energy beams struck the ground in distant bursts, turning stone to fire. The children watched from the ramp of the Empress's ship, their small figures trembling in the storm. "Mother," Arya cried. "They're coming!" Lyra turned toward them. "Back inside. Seal the doors." But before they could move, a voice thundered across the plain, a deep, metallic tone that made the air vibrate. "Empress Lyra of Virelon," it boomed. "Your rebellion ends here." Ethan looked up. A massive ship hovered above the ruins, its underside opening like the mouth of a predator. From it descended a single figure in dark armor, surrounded by flickering energy, High Commander Orthus. He landed heavily on the cracked stone, his armor glowing crimson. His voice was cold and steady. "You have broken the ancient law. You harbor a human and you defy the council's will. For this your line ends." Lyra stepped forward, unflinching. "You speak of law, Orthus, yet you murder in its name. The council fears humanity because it cannot control them." Orthus tilted his head. "Control? Don't containment. Humans are chaos wrapped in flesh. Every empire that touches them burns." Ethan took a step forward. "Funny, you sound afraid of us." Orthus's helmet turned toward him, glowing eyes narrowing. "Afraid? No, human. But I have seen what your kind will become. You are a storm waiting to swallow the stars." He raised his hand. Energy crackled between his fingers. "I will end that storm now." Before the strike could hit, Lyra raised her arm. A wall of shimmering light flared to life between them, absorbing the blast. The ground shook from the impact, but the barrier held. "Run!" she shouted to Ethan. "Get the girls to the ship." Ethan hesitated, watching her strain under the force. The barrier shimmered, cracking at the edges. "I'm not leaving you! Go!" she roared, her voice filled with power that echoed like thunder. Ethan turned and sprinted toward the ship. The girls clung to him as he pulled them aboard. The ship's lights flickered, systems powering up. Behind them, Lyra's shield shattered with a sound like breaking glass. Orthus moved swiftly, his energy blade igniting in a flash of red. Lyra drew her own weapon, an elegant staff of silver light, and met his strike with a crash that sent ripples through the air. They fought like gods. Sparks exploded with each clash. The storm around them grew wilder, lightning striking the ruins as if the planet itself felt their rage. Inside the ship, Aria pressed her face to the window. "Mother!" Ethan gritted his teeth and turned to the controls. Hold on. He didn't know alien technology, but the systems weren't completely foreign anymore. He slammed his hand against the ignition crystal, and the ship's engines roared to life. The floor shook beneath them as power surged through the hull. Come on," he muttered. Outside, Lyra stumbled, blood trickling from her lip. Orthus struck again, his blade cutting across her arm. She fell to one knee, her staff flickering. He stood over her, his voice like a death sentence. The Empress of Virelon, brought to her knees by her love for a human. How poetic! Lyra's eyes burned with fury. Not love. Faith. With her last strength, she slammed her staff into the ground. The planet responded. The glowing veins in the surface blazed bright blue, pulsing outward like a heartbeat. Energy erupted upward, striking Orthus and throwing him back. His armor cracked, sparks flying. Lyra turned toward the ship and shouted, "Go!" Ethan saw her through the glass, her hand raised in command. "No!" he yelled. "I'm not leaving you." But Aria grabbed his arm, tears streaming down her face. "If you stay, we all die, please." The ground trembled again. Lightning tore across the sky. Orthus rose slowly, his armor glowing brighter, fury radiating from him. Lyra met his gaze one last time. "You will not touch them," he laughed. "And who will stop me?" "You," she smiled faintly. "No, him." A deep hum filled the air. Ethan didn't understand until he saw the platform below the ship glowing again. The temple core. Lyra had reactivated it. The planet itself was waking up. Blue light burst from the cracks across the land. The sky turned white. The temple began to collapse into itself, folding reality like fabric. "Mother!" Aria screamed. Lyra's voice echoed through their minds. "Live, my children. Protect the human. He will be the bridge between worlds." Then everything exploded in light. The shockwave threw the ship upward, spinning it through the storm. Ethan clung to the controls, fighting to stabilize them as alarms blared. Through the brightness, he saw the Empress standing tall, her arms raised, her body glowing with pure energy. Then she was gone, swallowed by the light of her own power. The ship broke through the clouds, engines screaming. The planet below collapsed into a storm of light, vanishing into silence. When the glow faded, there was nothing left, just a void where Kareth Prime had been. Ethan stared out the window, chest tight. Aria and Lyra were sobbing quietly. He reached out, pulling them close. "She's gone," Lyra whispered. Ethan swallowed hard. "No, she saved us, and she's still out there somehow, far behind them." The Council fleet circled the empty void where the planet once was, their sensors confused by the massive energy surge. And inside their ship, a human, 2 alien princesses, and the echo of a fallen empress drifted toward an uncertain future. As the stars stretched before them, Ethan looked at the endless sky and whispered, "You didn't die for nothing." The youngest princess looked up at him, her small hand gripping his sleeve. "Where will we go now?" Ethan looked out at the stars. "Anywhere the Council can't find us." And though none of them knew it, the galaxy had already changed. For the first time in history, a human had stood against the law of the stars and survived. Far away, beyond the edge of known space, a faint pulse of light flickered. A voice, calm, distant, and strong, whispered through the void, "The Empress lives." And somewhere in the silence between galaxies, destiny stirred again.